I still remember the exact moment my father told me I was no longer part of the family. It was a cold November evening in Chicago, and the wind outside our house rattled the windows like someone was trying to get in. Inside, the living room smelled like burnt coffee and the tension that had been building for weeks. My mother stood by the fireplace with her arms folded. My brother Daniel sat on the couch with his head down, pretending to look ashamed. And my father looked at me like I was a stranger. "Say it again," he demanded. My hands were shaking. "I didn't take it," I said quietly. The room exploded. "Stop lying," my father shouted, slamming his fist on the table so hard, the picture frames rattled. "Your brother wouldn't accuse you for no reason." I looked at Daniel. He didn't look at me. "Tell them the truth," I whispered. But he didn't. And that was the moment everything in my life began to fall apart. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 32 years old now. But the story I'm about to tell you started when I was 19, the night my parents chose my brother's lie over their own daughter. And the night they threw me out of their house. 3 weeks earlier, our family had been normal. Not perfect, but normal. We lived in a quiet suburb just outside Chicago. My father owned a small construction company, my mother worked part-time at a dental office, and my brother Daniel was the golden child. Everyone knew it. Daniel was 2 years older than me, charming, confident, and the kind of person who could walk into a room and instantly become the center of attention. Teachers loved him. Neighbors admired him. My parents adored him. I, on the other hand, was the quiet one. I worked hard, kept my head down, and tried not to cause trouble. At 19, I was studying accounting at a local college and working evenings at a grocery store to help pay for tuition. I didn't ask my parents for money. I didn't complain. I just did my best. But none of that mattered the day Daniel walked into the house claiming someone had stolen $10,000 from him. I was sitting at the kitchen table doing homework when he burst through the front door. "Mom! Dad!" he shouted. My mother rushed out of the hallway. "What happened?" Daniel ran his hands through his hair dramatically. "The money is gone." "What money?" my father asked. "The money I was saving. The $10,000. My stomach dropped. $10,000? Daniel explained that he had been saving money for months, supposedly from freelance work and side jobs, and had hidden the cash inside a small lockbox in his closet. And now it was gone. My parents immediately went into panic mode. "Did someone break in?" my mother asked. "No," Daniel said. Then he looked directly at me. And for the first time, something cold moved down my spine. Because the look on his face, it wasn't confusion. It was calculation. "There's only one person who knew where it was," he said. The room went silent. My father slowly turned toward me. "What is he talking about?" My heart started pounding. "I don't know," I said. Daniel sighed heavily, like this conversation was exhausting him. "I told Emily about the lockbox last week," he said. "Remember? When she asked how I could afford a new car." "That's not what happened," I said immediately. But it didn't matter. Once the idea had entered my parents' minds, it spread like poison. Over the next 2 days, the house turned into a courtroom. My father interrogated me at the dinner table. My mother cried in the kitchen. Daniel stayed quiet most of the time, acting hurt and betrayed, which somehow made him look even more believable. "Just tell us the truth," my father said again and again. "We can fix this if you admit it." But there was nothing to admit. "I didn't take anything," I said. And every time I said it, they believed me a little less. On the third day, everything exploded. My father called a family meeting in the living room. I knew something was wrong the moment I walked in. My suitcase was sitting near the door. At first I thought it was a joke. Then my father spoke. "We gave you 3 days to tell the truth," he said coldly. I felt my chest tighten. "I already did." "No," he said. "You lied." My mother wiped her eyes. "Emily, please," she whispered. "Just say you took it. Your father is willing to forgive you." My heart shattered. "You want me to confess to something I didn't do?" My father stood up. "If you don't return the money," he said, "you can't stay here." The room felt like it was spinning. "Dad, I don't have it." Daniel finally looked at me, and there was a tiny smile at the corner of his mouth. That's when I realized something that would haunt me for years. He wasn't mistaken. He knew exactly what he was doing. "You have until tonight." My father said. "Tonight?" "To pack your things." My mother started crying again. but she didn't stop him. And Daniel didn't say a word. That night at 19 years old, I left my parents' house with 2 suitcases, $340 in my bank account, and a broken heart. My father didn't hug me, my mother didn't follow me outside, and my brother watched from the window as I walked down the driveway. I thought that was the worst day of my life. But I was wrong, because 7 years later, my brother would come looking for me, desperate, terrified, and needing the one thing only I could give him. My parents believed my brother's lie and disowned me. Same years later, he needed the one thing only I could give. The first night after I left home, I slept in my car. It was a 2007 Honda Civic that barely started in cold weather, but at that moment, it was the only thing in the world that belonged to me. I parked in the corner of a grocery store parking lot where the light stayed on all night. I wrapped myself in a thin blanket from my suitcase and tried to convince myself that everything would somehow work out. But around 3 in the morning, reality hit me. My parents believed I was a thief. My brother had accused me, and no one had defended me, not even my mother. That realization hurt more than the cold. The next morning I drove to campus and sat in my car for almost an hour before going inside. I had barely slept. My eyes were red, and my hands were still shaking. But I couldn't afford to fall apart. If I stopped moving, I knew the weight of everything would crush me. So I went to class like nothing had happened. I took notes, answered questions, even forced a smile when a classmate asked how my week was going. Busy, I said. That was the only word I could manage. That afternoon, I went to work at the grocery store. My manager, a middle-aged man named Carl, noticed something was wrong immediately. "You look like you got hit by a truck," he said. "Rough night," I replied. He studied me for a moment. "Everything okay at home?" I hesitated. Then I said the truth. "I don't have a home anymore." Carl didn't ask a lot of questions, but he did something I'll never forget. He let me work extra shifts, and for the next few weeks, he let me sleep in the employee break room after closing. It wasn't comfortable, but it was warm, and it gave me time to figure out my next move. For the first month, I kept hoping my parents would call. I checked my phone constantly. Every vibration made my heart jump. Not from my father, not from my mother, and definitely not from Daniel. It was like I had been erased from the family. 2 months later, I found a tiny basement apartment near campus. The rent was cheap because the place had almost no natural light and the heating system barely worked. But it was mine. Tonight I moved in. I sat on the floor surrounded by boxes and cried harder than I had since leaving home. Not because of the apartment, but because I realized something important. No one was coming to save me. If I wanted a future, I would have to build it completely on my own. The next few years were the hardest of my life. I worked 2 jobs while finishing college. During the day, I studied accounting. At night, I worked at the grocery store. On weekends, I did freelance bookkeeping for small businesses. I slept 4 or 5 hours a night if I was lucky. But slowly, things started to change. My grades improved. Professors noticed my work ethic, and by the time I graduated, I had something I hadn't had in a long time. A real opportunity. My first job after college was at a small accounting firm in downtown Chicago. The salary wasn't huge, but it was enough to finally breathe. I moved out of the basement apartment, bought secondhand furniture, and for the first time in years, my life started to feel stable. But there was one thing I never managed to let go of. Daniel. I kept replaying that night over and over in my head. The way he looked at me. That tiny smile. The certainty in his voice when he accused me. None of it made sense. Why would he do that? What did he gain from destroying my life? For years, I had no answers. Then one afternoon, everything changed. It was a rainy Thursday. I was reviewing financial reports at the office when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. The text was short. "Emily, this is Mom." My hands froze. For a moment I just stared at the screen. 7 years of silence. And now, suddenly, she was texting me. My heart started pounding so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Another message appeared. "We need to talk." I didn't respond right away. Part of me wanted to ignore it completely. But another part, the 19-year-old version of me that had been thrown out of the house, still wanted answers. Finally, I typed back. "Why now?" The reply came almost immediately. "It's about Daniel. The name hit me like a punch to the chest. For years I had imagined this moment. Running into him somewhere, hearing the truth. But I never thought it would happen like this. I stared at the phone for a long time before asking the question I had been waiting to ask for 7 years. What did he tell you? 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally the message came. He's sick. I frowned. Sick how? Several minutes passed before the next reply. When it arrived, I felt the air leave my lungs. Kidney failure. The office around me suddenly felt very quiet. I read the message again. And again. Kidney failure. Then another message appeared. The doctors say he needs a transplant. I didn't understand why she was telling me this. Daniel had friends. He had relatives. He had the entire family who believed him instead of me. Why was she contacting me? My phone buzzed again, and the next message made my blood run cold. You're the only match in the family. I sat there for a long time staring at the screen. 7 years ago, my brother destroyed my life with a lie. And now, he needed something. Only I could give him. A kidney. The hospital room was quieter than I expected. Machines hummed softly in the background, and the pale winter sunlight filtered through the blinds. It painted long stripes across the floor. My brother looked smaller than I remembered. 7 years ago, he had stood in our parents' living room, confident and angry, pointing at me like I was some kind of criminal. Back then, he had looked powerful. Now he looked fragile. His skin had a gray tint to it. His hands trembled slightly as they rested on the thin hospital blanket. Kidney failure. That was the one thing only I could give. I stood near the door for a moment, unsure if I should come closer. He noticed me almost immediately. His eyes widened. Lena? He whispered. Hearing my name from him again after 7 years felt strange. Like hearing a song from a life I no longer lived. Yeah, I said quietly. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Finally, he let out a slow breath. I didn't think you'd come. I shrugged slightly. Your doctor said I was a match. Another silence, then he looked down at his hands. I don't deserve it. That sentence surprised me. 7 years ago, he never would have said something like that. 7 years ago, he had been absolutely certain that he was right. I walked closer to the bed and sat down in the chair beside it. What happened to you, Ryan? I asked. He let out a dry laugh. Life. I waited. After a long pause, he spoke again. You want the truth? My chest tightened, yes. He closed his eyes for a moment. When I told Mom and Dad that you stole the money, I thought I was protecting myself. The words landed like stones. 7 years ago, our parents had accused me of stealing $20,000 from the family business, money that had disappeared from the company account. Ryan had told them he saw me take it. They believed him. Without question. Within a week, I was disowned. Thrown out of the house. Cut out of everything. I didn't know what else to do, Ryan continued quietly. I had made some bad decisions. What kind of decisions, I asked. Gambling. Of course. I lost a lot of money, more than I could ever pay back. He swallowed. So I took it from the business account just for a little while. I thought I could win it back. I stared at him. And when you didn't, he nodded slowly, I panicked. The room suddenly felt very small. So you blamed me. Yes. The word barely came out. Ryan, I said quietly, do you have any idea what that did to me? He nodded again. I know. No, you don't. My voice cracked despite my effort to stay calm. I lost everything. My parents, my home, my entire family. He didn't argue. Instead, tears began sliding down his face. I know. That made me angrier somehow, because he finally understood. But it was 7 years too late. Why didn't you ever tell them the truth? I asked. His voice was barely audible. Because every year that passed, it got harder. He looked at me. And I was a coward. The word hung in the air, coward. I studied his face. For the first time since walking into that hospital room, I didn't see the brother who destroyed my life. I saw a broken man. A man who had spent 7 years carrying a lie that slowly poisoned everything. I told them, he said suddenly. My head snapped up. You what? A week ago. After the doctors told me my kidneys were failing. My heart started pounding. You told Mom and Dad? He nodded. I told them everything. I felt dizzy. What did they say? Ryan wiped his eyes. They cried. I almost laughed. Good. They've been trying to contact you, he said carefully. I changed my number, I replied. I know. Another long silence passed. Then he looked at me again. Lena, if you walk out of this room right now, I won't blame you. He swallowed. You owe me nothing. For a moment I imagined it. Standing up, walking out, leaving him to face the consequences of what he did. It would be fair. It would be justice. 7 years of loneliness. 7 years of rebuilding my life from nothing. 7 years of wondering why my family had believed the worst about me so easily. But life had changed me. Those 7 years had taught me something important. Carrying anger forever is just another kind of prison, and I had already served my time. So I asked the question that mattered most. If I do this, will you tell them the truth again? Ryan looked confused. What do you mean? I mean publicly. To the whole family, to everyone who believed your lie. He nodded immediately. Yes. And you'll tell them I never stole anything? Yes. You'll fix it. His voice broke. I'll try. I stood up slowly. He watched me, clearly expecting me to leave. Instead, I said the words he least expected. I'll do the transplant. Ryan stared at me. What? I'll do it. Tears filled his eyes instantly. Why? I thought about that question carefully. Then I answered honestly. Because I refused to become the kind of person your lie almost turned me into. The surgery happened 3 weeks later. It was long, complicated, but successful. When I woke up, the first person I saw wasn't Ryan. It was my mother. She looked older than I remembered, much older. Her eyes were red from crying. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered my name. Lena. I felt something tighten in my chest. 7 years. 7 years since I last heard her say it. I'm sorry, she said immediately. Her voice shattered. I'm so sorry. Behind her stood my father. He didn't speak, but I saw tears in his eyes too. And for the first time in 7 years, I realized something. They hadn't just lost me. They had lived with that loss every day. Ryan survived. The transplant worked. Months later, he kept his promise. He told everyone the truth, the extended family, the people in town, the business partners, everyone. Some people apologized to me. Others avoided me out of embarrassment. But the truth was finally out. And strangely, I didn't feel the victory I once imagined. I just felt peaceful. Because my life had moved on. I had built something new, something that didn't depend on their approval. Ryan and I will never be the same as we were before. Some things can't be undone, but he's trying. And sometimes, that's enough. 7 years ago, my family believed a lie and lost their daughter. This time, they chose the truth. And maybe slowly, we'll find our way back to each other.